Here's $5,000. Cancel the wedding. Your brother's party matters more.
You sold me out for pocket change?
Take it. 5,000 is more than fair. Do the right thing.
My happiness isn't for sale.
You are going to his party instead of my wedding?
I am so sorry, Clara. Kevin said it would mean the world.
The world! And what am I to you? Nothing!
After all we've done for you, how can you be so cruel?
Damn! You'll destroy this family!
No, you destroyed it the day you put a price tag on me. Now we're your family. Don't do this to us!
You can't just erase us.
You already erased me. Now I'm erasing you. Goodbye.
My name is Clara. I'm 28 years old, and this is me on my wedding day. After a lifetime of being the responsible daughter, the one who never asked for anything, this was supposed to be the one day that was all about me. But when I looked out at the ceremony, the entire front row on my side of the aisle was empty. That's when my father called, not to apologize, but with a business offer. "Here's $5,000, he said, his voice cold as ice. "Cancel the wedding. Your brother's engagement party is more important." The feeling of being sold out by my own father for the price of a used car made me go completely numb. He had no idea that by making that offer, he wasn't just losing a daughter. He was about to lose everything. If you've ever felt worthless to the people who should love you most, let me know where you're watching from. And hit that like button, because you're going to want to see how this ends. After graduation, I left Ohio, and I didn't look back. Boston became my sanctuary. A city big enough to get lost in, to rebuild myself from the ground up. I landed a job at a rising biotech firm, a position that was demanding, complex, and a perfect fit for me. While my family pictured me pushing papers in some boring cubicle, the reality was entirely different. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. The work became my entire world. I was the first one in the office and the last one to leave. My Friday nights weren't spent in bars or on dates. They were spent in the lab, running hypotheses, analyzing data, searching for the breakthroughs others had missed. My colleagues were brilliant, but I had an edge. They were working for a living. I was working to prove I existed. Every success, every bit of praise from my boss, every nod of respect in a meeting, it was the validation I never got at home. Within 2 years, I was promoted from a junior researcher to a team lead. A year after that, I was put in charge of a make-or-break project. We were developing a new compound that could revolutionize how a rare autoimmune disease was treated. It was a massive gamble for the company, and they put their faith in me to lead it. For the next 18 months, that project was my life. I gave up weekends, holidays, and countless hours of sleep. There were moments I was sure we would fail, times when the data made no sense and the pressure was almost unbearable. But I didn't quit. I pushed my team, and I pushed myself harder. And then, on a gray Tuesday afternoon, we got it. We found it. The compound worked. Even better than we had ever hoped. That success changed everything at work. I was promoted to senior project manager, one of the youngest in the company to hold that title. People knew my name. Executives listened when I spoke. I had built a reputation based on results, not on talk. But the real success, the secret weapon I was quietly building, was more than just a new title. With the filing of the patent for the new compound, the company awarded me a bonus, a life-altering bonus. When I saw the email from HR, I had to read it 3 times to make sure my eyes weren't deceiving me. The number was staggering. Over $250,000. $250,000. That money went straight into my high-yield savings account, sitting quietly alongside the funds I had been meticulously hoarding for years. My family knew nothing. When I called home, I offered vague updates like "work is good" or "been busy." They never asked for details. In their minds, I was still Clara, the self-sufficient daughter, probably living paycheck to paycheck in an expensive city. They couldn't conceive of the scale of my success, and their ignorance was my shield. It was my advantage, because there was something else they had forgotten, a critical detail buried in the past, an act of desperation on their part, and a reluctant decision on mine. About 3 years prior, my dad had called in a panic. Kevin, as usual, was in trouble. This time, it was serious. He'd racked up crippling credit card debt and borrowed money from the wrong kind of people. My parents needed to refinance their house to bail him out, but the banks had turned them down. Their credit was shot, destroyed by years of financial rescues for Kevin. They had only one option left: me. I remember that conversation perfectly. My dad's voice, for the first time I could ever recall, was stripped of its usual authority. It was pleading. He was begging me to co-sign the loan. "It's just a formality, Clara," he'd said. "Your name on the paperwork will get it approved. We'll handle the payments. You won't have to worry about a thing." I hated the idea. Every part of my being screamed no. But they had me cornered. They played the guilt card, the family obligation card. And so, I gave in. I flew back to Ohio, sat in a sterile bank office, and signed a mountain of papers. My name was placed right next to theirs on the title of the house I grew up in. Then I flew back to Boston and tried to forget about it. They made the payments, and I never had to step in. Over time, I'm sure they forgot about my involvement, not to. To them, it was just a problem solved. Another one of Kevin's messes cleaned up. But I didn't forget. I never forgot. I knew my name on that mortgage wasn't just a signature. It was leverage. It was a safety net I never needed, and a weapon I never intended to use. Sitting in my Boston apartment, staring at the 6-figure number in my bank account, I felt a cold sense of peace. I was no longer the desperate young girl scrambling for approval. I was a woman who had built her own success. I had the career, I had the savings, and most importantly, I had an ace up my sleeve that my family had no idea existed. I didn't know yet when or how I would have to play that card. But I knew, deep in my gut, that the day was coming when they would leave me no other choice. I met Liam during my 4th year in Boston. He was different from anyone I'd ever known. Kind, patient, and with a laugh that could make a whole room feel warm. He saw me. Not the version of me I presented to the world, but the real me, with all my insecurities and the quiet sadness I carried from my childhood. He didn't try to fix me. He just loved me. When he proposed on a snowy evening in the Boston Public Garden, it was the easiest yes of my life. For the first time, my future felt bright, filled with a promise of happiness I had built for myself, with him. The anxiety started almost immediately after the joy. I had to tell my family. A small, hopeful part of me thought, maybe this time will be different. A wedding? A marriage? Surely, this was an event big enough to finally warrant their genuine excitement. Liam held my hand as I made the call, my stomach twisting into knots. My mother answered, and I blurted out the news. Liam proposed. We're engaged. The silence on the other end of the line lasted just a second too long. "Oh," she finally said, her voice flat. "That's nice, honey. Congratulations." There were no questions about the ring, no excitement about the proposal. It was the same detached tone she used when I told her I'd gotten into the advanced science program all those years ago. Before I could even begin to talk about wedding plans, she quickly changed the subject. "By the way, did I tell you? Kevin is thinking about getting his real estate license. Your father is so proud. He thinks Kevin has a real knack for sales." And just like that, my moment was over. It had been swallowed whole by Kevin's latest whim. Liam saw the look on my face when I hung up. He didn't need to ask. He just pulled me into a hug, and I let myself feel the sting of disappointment. Just for a minute, before pushing it down. Again. Over the next few months, As wedding planning kicked into high gear, the warning signs started to pile up. Small at first, then impossible to ignore. My mother's phone calls became more frequent, but they were strange. They weren't about the wedding. She'd ask odd, probing questions that felt completely out of character. "So, that little apartment you're renting in Boston, is it one of those expensive ones?" she asked one day. Another time it was, "Are you managing to save much money with your job? Your father was just wondering." I brushed it off as her being clumsy with conversation, never imagining there was a motive behind it. Her tone felt different too. It was a forced, sugary sweetness that didn't feel genuine, like someone trying too hard to be nice before asking for a huge favor. A deep, unsettling feeling began to grow in my gut, a low hum of anxiety that I couldn't quite place. Then, 2 weeks before my wedding day, the world tilted on its axis. I was scrolling through Instagram on my lunch break when a photo made my thumb freeze. It was Kevin, beaming, with his arm around his girlfriend of 6 months, and on her finger, a massive diamond ring. The caption read, "She said yes. Can't wait to celebrate our future with everyone." My heart hammered against my ribs. Kevin was engaged? No one had bothered to tell me. Then I saw the comments. My mother was right at the top. So thrilled for my handsome boy and his beautiful fiancée. Counting down the days until the big party this weekend. This weekend. My blood ran cold. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial my mother's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice cheerful until she realized it was me. "Clara, is everything okay?" "Kevin is engaged?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Oh, you saw the post?" "Yes. Isn't it wonderful?" "His party? This weekend?" "Mom, what are you talking about? My wedding is this weekend." The pause was deafening. "Is it?" she said, her voice dripping with fake confusion. Oh dear, I must have gotten the dates mixed up. "Well, honey, Kevin has had this party planned for a while now." "He just got engaged," I shouted, losing my composure. How could he have had it planned for a while? Then her voice shifted, becoming patronizingly calm. "Clara, honey, would it be possible for you and Liam to just reschedule? We've already put down a non-refundable deposit of $10,000 for the venue for Kevin's party. It's all paid for." I couldn't breathe. The audacity of the request, the sheer, breathtaking selfishness of it, knocked the wind out of me. Reschedule my wedding. For an engagement party. "No, Mom," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "We are not rescheduling our wedding." "Well," she sighed as if I were a toddler throwing a tantrum. "I guess we'll just have to figure something out then. It's just, this is so important to your brother." I hung up the phone, the rage inside me a white-hot inferno. I thought that was it. I thought that was the absolute lowest they could sink. I was wrong. The next day, my doorbell rang. It was my father. He had driven 3 hours from Ohio, and he was not there to apologize. He stood on my doorstep, his face set in a stern, disappointed expression, like a CEO about to reprimand an underperforming employee. "Clara," he began, skipping any form of greeting. "Your mother told me about your conversation. You're making this unnecessarily difficult." "Difficult?" I echoed, my voice shaking with disbelief. "I'm the one getting married. You're the one asking me to cancel it for a party." "It is not a party," he corrected me, his tone condescending. "It is a milestone for your brother. He deserves his moment in the spotlight." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a thick white envelope. My blood froze. "Look, I know you've put down deposits. I'm prepared to make this right." He fanned out a stack of crisp $100 bills. "Here's $5,000. Cash. That should be more than enough to cover any cancellation fees. Just pick another date. Do the right thing for this family, Clara. I stared at the money in his hand, then up at his face. This wasn't an offer. It was a transaction. He was trying to pay me off. To buy my silence. To erase my wedding. The insult was so profound, so utterly dehumanizing, it went beyond anything I had ever experienced. This wasn't just favoritism anymore. This was a business deal where my happiness, my love, my entire life was valued at $5,000. Less than half of what they'd spent on Kevin's party. A terrifying calm washed over me. Get out of my house, I said, my voice flat and dead. And take your insult money with you. Turns out, my wedding isn't for sale. I slammed the door in his face, the sound echoing the final shattering of any hope I had left. The war had begun. The final betrayal came from the one person I thought I could count on. My maid of honor, my best friend of 10 years, Zoe. The night before the wedding, she sent me a vague text. So sorry. Something urgent came up with my family. I might be a little late tomorrow, but I'll be there. A flicker of unease went through me. Zoe was never vague, but I was too emotionally exhausted to question it. I tried to sleep, but couldn't. I scrolled mindlessly through social media, only to see a new post from Kevin's fiancée, a selfie of her in her party dress. And there, in the comments, posted just 30 minutes ago, was a comment from Zoe. You look stunning! Can't wait for tomorrow! The air left my lungs. It was a physical blow, a punch to the gut that left me gasping. I called her instantly, straight to voicemail. I texted her, my fingers fumbling on the screen. I saw your comment. Are you going to his party instead of my wedding? The 3 little dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, the message came through. I'm so sorry, Clara. Kevin reached out and said how much it would mean to him if I came. I thought maybe I could do both, but the timing just won't work. The betrayal was absolute, complete. I was utterly alone. I turned my phone off, curling up on the hotel bed, the beautiful white dress hanging on the door like a ghost. I didn't cry. I couldn't. There was nothing left inside me but a vast, cold emptiness. They had all made their choice, and that choice was not mine. And in that moment, I realized something. After all these years of sacrificing, of hoping, of trying to be enough, I was finally, truly, done. Right now, I honestly don't have the words to describe how that feels. If you're feeling as outraged as I am right now, do me a favor. Comment with just one word that describes what this family did. But instead of breaking down, that rage, it turned into a cold, hard strength. And I knew, right then and there, that things were about to change. Drastically. The morning of my wedding arrived, not with joyful anticipation, but with a quiet, hollow resignation. The betrayal from Zoe the night before had been the final straw. It didn't even hurt anymore. It was just a fact. A confirmation of a truth I had been avoiding my entire life. I was completely and utterly on my own. My friend from college, Allison, had seen my frantic posts on social media and, bless her heart, had shown up at my hotel room at 7 in the morning with coffee and a fierce determination in her eyes. She took one look at my face and said, "Okay, I'm your maid of honor now. Let's do this." Her kindness was a small, warm light in an overwhelming darkness. I walked through the preparations like a ghost, a spectator at my own wedding. The hair, the makeup, the beautiful white dress. It all felt like a costume for a part I was no longer sure I wanted to play. When we arrived at the venue, a charming historic building in Cambridge, the emptiness of the front row on my side of the aisle was a stark, physical representation of the emptiness inside me. It was a gaping wound. And then, just as I was about to walk down the aisle, Liam's father, Robert, approached me. His kind eyes filled with a gentle sadness. He told me he knew my father wasn't there, and that it would be his absolute honor to walk me down the aisle if I'd have him. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat, and took his arm. Walking down that aisle was surreal. I saw the faces of our friends, of Liam's family, all smiling. But my eyes were locked on Liam, waiting for me at the altar. The look on his face when he saw me. It was everything. Pure love. Unconditional. In that moment, the empty chairs faded away. There was only him. The ceremony was beautiful, but it was Liam's vows that shattered the fragile composure I had been holding on to. He didn't just talk about love and partnership. He spoke directly to the pain he knew I carried. He said, "Clara, I promise to be your safe harbor. I promise to build a home with you where you are always seen, always heard, and always valued. Today, we are not just getting married. We are creating our own family, a family founded on unconditional love and unwavering support." Each word was a balm on a lifetime of wounds, but they also served as a stark contrast, a bright light that illuminated the dark, ugly truth of the family I was born into. And as he spoke, something inside me shifted. The pain, the grief, the years of quiet desperation. They didn't disappear. They began to change. They started to solidify, to cool, to harden. The heartbreak began to morph into something else, something cold, something hard as steel. The shift was almost imperceptible at first. During the reception, I smiled. I laughed. I danced with my new husband. I thanked guests for coming. I played the part of the happy bride, but underneath the surface, a revolution was taking place in my soul. Every polite smile from a distant relative of Liam's, every warm hug from one of his aunts, was another piece of evidence. This is what family is supposed to feel like. This warmth, this genuine joy for someone else's happiness. This was real. And what did I have at home? It was a sham. A toxic, one-sided transaction where I was expected to give everything and receive nothing in return. I looked across the dance floor, watching Liam laugh with his cousins, and a thought, clear as a bell, cut through the noise in my head. Enough. It wasn't an emotional outburst. It was a quiet, cold realization, a simple statement of fact. This was the end. There would be no more phone calls where I hoped for a different outcome. No more holidays where I swallowed my disappointment. No more minimizing my own achievements to make room for my brothers. The door to that part of my life, the part where I was the dutiful, forgotten daughter, had just slammed shut. And it was never, ever going to open again. The pain I felt wasn't gone. It had simply been transformed. It was no longer a weakness. It was fuel. A cold, clean, efficient energy that was now coursing through my veins. And I knew exactly what I needed to do with it. With a calm that felt almost foreign, I leaned over to Liam and whispered, "I just need a moment. I'll be right back." He nodded, trusting me completely. But I didn't go to the restroom to fix my makeup or to cry. I walked with a steady, determined pace straight to the venue's coat check room. I retrieved my purse, the one I had packed with my essentials for the night, and walked out into the cool, quiet air of the venue's private garden. The noise of the party faded behind me, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves. I sat down on a cold stone bench, the full weight of my wedding dress settling around me. For a moment, I just breathed. In, out. Then I took out my phone. My hands were perfectly steady. There was no hesitation, no second guessing, just a methodical sequence of actions, a plan that had been forming in the back of my mind for months, a contingency I had hoped I would never need, now being activated. First, I opened my contacts and found the name I had saved under Mr. Davis, my lawyer. I had put him on a small retainer 3 months ago, telling him it was for a potential family real estate issue. It was a lie, of course. It was for this exact moment. He was a shark, the best and most ruthless family law attorney in the state. I pressed the call button. It went to his after-hours voicemail, just as I knew it would. When the beep sounded, I spoke, my voice even and clear. Mr. Davis, this is Clara Jenkins. I'm calling to inform you that the contingency we discussed is now active. Please proceed with the full plan on Monday morning. All of it. Thank you. I ended the call. Step 1 was complete. Next, I opened my banking app. My thumbprint unlocked a world they knew nothing about. I navigated to the bill pay section, to the recurring payments. And there it was. A payment I had set up 3 years ago, after that desperate phone call from my father. A payment of $2,500 every single month. It went directly from my account to theirs, a quiet subsidy to help them cover the new, higher mortgage payment after they had refinanced the house to pay off Kevin's debts. They had told me it was temporary, just until they got back on their feet. 3 years was not temporary. I looked at the payment, at the years of my hard-earned money that had been siphoned off to enable my brother's failures. With a single decisive tap, I pressed the button. Cancel this recurring payment. A confirmation screen popped up. Are you sure? I pressed yes. A small green checkmark appeared. Done. Step 2 was complete. Finally, I opened my text messages and found the number for my realtor, a sharp, efficient woman named Sarah who had helped me find my apartment. I had spoken to her last week, under the guise of exploring investment opportunities. She already had all the necessary documents pulled. I typed out a short, simple message. Sarah, it's Clara Jenkins. Please begin the paperwork to force the sale of the property at 123 Maple Drive under the co-signer clause we discussed. Let's move as quickly as possible. I hit send. The message was delivered instantly. Step 3 was complete. I sat there for another minute, the phone feeling heavy in my hand. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't shed a tear. I had simply, quietly, and methodically dismantled the foundation of their entire world. They had tried to buy my wedding for $5,000, a pittance, an insult. They had no idea that for years I had been the one silently keeping them afloat. They had no idea that the daughter they had ignored and devalued held the key to their financial survival. They had forgotten that when they put me on that mortgage, they hadn't just gotten my signature. They had given me power. And they were about to find out just how powerful I had become. I smoothed down the front of my wedding dress, stood up, and walked back towards the party, a queen returning to her court. The war had been declared, and the first shots had been fired. And they didn't even know it yet. I walked back into my wedding reception feeling like a completely different person. The hollowed-out girl who had walked down the aisle just a few hours ago was gone. In her place was a woman made of ice and steel. I rejoined the party, smiling and laughing with a newfound sense of detached calm. For the next hour, I was the perfect bride. I toasted with Liam's family, I danced with his father, and I even managed to enjoy a slice of our wedding cake. All the while, my phone, which I had retrieved from my purse, remained ominously silent. They didn't know it yet, but the clock was ticking. The first domino fell at precisely 9:47 p.m. It was during a lull in the music, as Liam and I were thanking our guests for coming. My phone buzzed in my hand, then again, and again. I glanced down. 1 missed call from my mother, then 3, then 10. A string of frantic text messages followed. Clara, call me now. It's an emergency. Something has happened with Kevin. Liam saw my expression change. Everything okay? He asked, his voice low and concerned. I showed him the screen. I don't know, I said, my voice steady. But I think it's starting. He squeezed my hand. I'm with you. Whatever it is, we face it together. The story came out in a jumbled, hysterical phone call from my mother a few minutes later, after I had excused myself from the party once more. Her voice was thick with manufactured panic. Kevin's fiancée, Jessica, had apparently had a dramatic change of heart. Right in the middle of their lavish engagement party, she had called the whole thing off, told Kevin he was a spoiled, jobless loser, and walked out. My mother painted a picture of a family in crisis, of my poor, heartbroken brother, of a celebration turned to ruin. They were devastated. They needed me. They were on their way back to their hotel, and they needed to see me. Tonight. It was a performance, and I knew it. This wasn't about Kevin's broken heart. This was damage control. They knew Jessica had likely told him exactly why she was leaving, because she'd found out he was the kind of person who would sabotage his own sister's wedding. They weren't coming to me for comfort. They were coming for absolution. They were coming to spin the story, to gauge my reaction, to make sure I would play my part and help them sweep this whole ugly mess under the rug. They were coming to put me back in my box. Fine, I said, my voice devoid of the sympathy she was so desperately fishing for. Liam and I will be back at our hotel around 11. You can meet us in the lobby. We left our own wedding reception shortly after, swept away in a shower of rose petals and well wishes from people who actually cared about us. At the hotel, we changed out of our wedding attire. I slipped into a simple black dress. It felt appropriate. Like I was attending a funeral, the funeral for the person I used to be. At 11:15, my parents walked into the hotel lobby. They looked haggard and stressed, their party clothes looking rumpled and out of place. My mother rushed towards me, her arms outstretched for a hug, a picture of a grieving matriarch. I didn't move a muscle. I just stood there, a silent, unmovable statue, and watched her arms fall awkwardly to her sides when she realized no embrace was coming. Liam, ever my rock, suggested we go to a small, empty conference room off the lobby for privacy. The moment the door clicked shut behind us, the performance began in earnest. My mother burst into theatrical tears. "Oh, Clara," she sobbed, dabbing at her dry eyes with a tissue. "It was just awful. Just the most horrible night. That girl, Jessica, she was so cruel to your brother. Right in front of everyone." My father chimed in, his voice heavy with false gravity. "Your brother is completely shattered. We couldn't think of anyone else to turn to. We needed our family. We needed you." They were laying it on so thick it was almost comical. They painted a dramatic tale of woe, of a family wronged, of a celebration destroyed by a heartless outsider. They talked and talked, their words filling the sterile room. But I didn't hear a single one. I was watching them like a scientist observing a specimen under a microscope. I watched the way my mother glanced at my father for cues. I watched the way my father clenched his jaw when he mentioned how much money they had lost on the party. They never once mentioned my wedding. Not once. It was as if it hadn't even happened. In their version of reality, the only important event of the day had been Kevin's party. My role was simple: to absorb their drama, to offer comfort, and to make it all better, just like I always had. I let them talk until they had exhausted themselves, until their manufactured grief had run its course, and an awkward silence fell over the room. They looked at me expectantly, waiting for my sympathetic response. Waiting for me to say, "Oh, you poor things, how can I help?" I remained perfectly still, my hands folded calmly in my lap. My silence unnerved them. It wasn't part of the script. My mother started to fidget with her purse. My father cleared his throat. "Well," he said, a note of impatience creeping into his voice, "aren't you going to say anything?" I took a slow breath. And then I spoke. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the silence like a shard of glass. "I have a few things to say, actually," I began, looking directly at my father. His eyes widened slightly at my calm, cold tone. First, I've just been reviewing my finances. It's always good to have a clear picture of things, you know? And I noticed an unnecessary expense, so I canceled it. The recurring payment of $2,500 that I've been sending to your bank account for the past 3 years has been stopped, effective immediately. My father's face went blank with shock. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at my mother, who just stared back, confused. He knew exactly what payment I was talking about. The subsidy, the quiet bailout had been keeping them comfortable. Before he could process it, I turned my attention to my mother. And speaking of finances, I continued, my voice just as level, just as calm. I also took some time today to consult with a few professionals. It turns out that co-signing a mortgage gives you certain rights. So, my lawyer will be contacting you on Monday morning. He'll be initiating the legal process to force the sale of the house on Maple Drive. The color drained from my mother's face. What? What are you talking about? She stammered. Sell the house? That's right, I said, letting a small, cold smile touch my lips for the first time. As the co-signer on that disastrous refinance loan you took out to pay off Kevin's debts, I am exercising my legal right to recoup my financial investment in the property. I want my money back. All of it. The air in the room became thick, heavy, and impossible to breathe. They were both staring at me now, their faces a mixture of horror and complete, utter disbelief. They were finally seeing me, not as their daughter, not as their emotional punching bag, but as a threat. I let the weight of my words settle for a long, delicious moment. Then I stood up. Liam stood with me, his presence a solid, unwavering wall at my side. I looked down at my parents, who now seemed so small, so pathetic, sitting there on the conference room chairs. You tried to cancel my wedding, I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper, forcing them to lean in. You put a price on my happiness, $5,000. You thought you could buy me off, erase me, because you believed your son's party was more important. I paused, letting them absorb the final fatal blow. Well, you made your choice, and now I've made mine. I'm not canceling my wedding. I'm canceling your entire lifestyle. My lawyer informs me you'll have 90 days to vacate the property once the court order is issued. I walked towards the door, then stopped and looked back at them one last time. Good luck. Then I took my husband's hand, and we walked out of the room, leaving them behind in the ruins of the world they had built. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of their reality shattering into a million irreparable pieces. Liam and I didn't say a word as we rode the elevator up to our suite. We didn't have to. He just held my hand, his grip firm and steady, a silent anchor in the storm I had just unleashed. The moment we stepped into our room, the opulent bridal suite that was supposed to be a haven of newlywed bliss, my phone began to buzz. It wasn't a single call. It was a relentless, frantic assault. The screen lit up with my mother's name, then my father's, then a number I didn't recognize that I knew had to be Kevin. It buzzed on the nightstand, a furious, trapped insect demanding my attention. I looked at it, then at Liam. Without a word, he walked over, picked up the phone, and switched it to silent. The buzzing stopped. The frantic flashing of the screen continued, but the room was finally, blessedly, quiet. We got ready for bed in a comfortable silence, the adrenaline from the confrontation slowly draining away, leaving behind a strange sense of calm, a sense of finality. As Liam went into the bathroom to brush his teeth, curiosity got the better of me. I picked up my phone. The screen was a nightmare landscape of notifications. 57 missed calls, 112 new text messages, and a string of voicemails. I pressed the play button on the first one, turning the volume down low. My mother's voice, laced with disbelief, filled the quiet room. Clara, I don't understand what you said. Sell the house? This has to be some kind of sick joke. You're just upset. Call me back right now so we can talk about this like reasonable people. The message ended. Reasonable people. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. I played the next one. It was my father. The disbelief was gone, replaced by a raw, sputtering rage that was all too familiar. "You ungrateful little brat," he roared, his voice distorted by the phone's speaker. "After everything we have done for you, the sacrifices we made, this is how you repay us? By trying to make us homeless? You have no idea what you've just done. You have destroyed this family. You hear me? Destroyed it." Sacrifices. The word hung in the air, a bitter joke. The only sacrifices ever made in that family had been mine. And then, the one I was waiting for. Kevin. His voice wasn't angry. It was a pathetic, terrified whine. "Clara, what the hell is going on? Mom and Dad are freaking out. They're saying you're selling the house. Is that true? Come on, this isn't funny. Where am I supposed to live? You can't just do this. It's not fair." Not fair. The words from the golden child himself. It was the perfect, pitiful end to the trilogy of their delusion. I listened to them all, a strange sense of detachment washing over me. These voices, the ones that used to hold so much power over me, the ones that could reduce me to tears with a single disapproving word, they sounded hollow now. Pathetic. They were the frantic cries of emperors who had just realized their clothes were gone, and they were standing naked and powerless for the world to see. I deleted the voicemails, one by one. The text messages were an even more chaotic journey through the 5 stages of their grief. First came the denial. "This is a misunderstanding. You're not serious." Then came the anger, pages and pages of it, filled with accusations and insults. Then, as the hours ticked by and they realized I wasn't responding, the bargaining began. My father's texts shifted from rage to a clumsy attempt at negotiation. "Okay, look, we can talk about this. Maybe we can work something out with the payments. Just call off your lawyer." An hour later, an even more desperate plea. "What do you want, Clara? Is it more money? I'll pay you back the 5,000 I offered you. I'll make it 10,000. Just stop this." He was still trying to buy me. Even now, he thought this was about money. He simply couldn't comprehend that this was about dignity, about respect, about a lifetime of being treated like I was nothing. My mother's strategy was different. She went straight for the emotional jugular, attempting to wield the weapon that had always worked before: guilt. "How could you do this to your own mother?" she texted. "My heart can't take this stress. The doctor said I need to stay calm. Are you trying to kill me?" It was a masterclass in manipulation, a symphony of victimhood. She followed it up with the classics. "I did everything for you kids. I sacrificed my whole life for this family, and this is the thanks I get. You will regret this for the rest of your life when you're all alone. Family is supposed to be forever, Clara. You're throwing that all away." But the words had no power anymore. The guilt she was trying to ignite found no fuel to burn. I read the messages, and I felt nothing. It was like reading a script from a bad movie I had seen 100 times before. I knew all the lines, and I knew they weren't true. I hadn't destroyed the family. I had simply stopped being the glue that held their dysfunctional fantasy together. I had stopped setting myself on fire to keep them warm. Liam came out of the bathroom and saw me looking at the phone, a small, sad smile on my face. "You okay?" he asked. "I will be," I said, and for the first time I knew it was true. I showed him the messages. He read them, his expression hardening. "They're desperate," he said. "They're predictable," I corrected him. "This is what they do. When they can't control you, they try to blame you." I spent the next 10 minutes doing something I should have done years ago. I opened my father's contact. I scrolled down. I pressed, block this caller. A small pop-up asked if I was sure. I pressed block contact. He disappeared. I did the same for my mother. Block, gone. Then I did it for Kevin. Block, gone. With 3 simple taps, I had erected a digital wall, a boundary they could no longer cross. The silence that followed was the sound of my own freedom. We went to bed, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, I slept soundly through the night, wrapped in the arms of my husband. The next morning, we woke up to sunshine streaming through the windows of our hotel suite. It felt like the first day of the rest of my life. We ordered room service, and we didn't talk about my family. We talked about our honeymoon, about the life we were going to build together, about the future. We checked out of the hotel around noon. As we were waiting for our car, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but it had an Ohio area code. I knew who it was. I let it ring, and ring, and ring. Then I declined the call. A few minutes later, another call from another unknown Ohio number. I declined it too. They would keep trying, of course. They would use friends' phones, burner numbers. They would try to find cracks in the wall I had built. But it didn't matter. The game had changed. I was no longer a player. I was the one who owned the board. Their panic, their anger, their attempts to manipulate and guilt me, it was just noise now. The desperate, fading noise of a world I no longer lived in. The peace didn't last long. 2 days after Liam and I returned to Boston, as we were unpacking bags filled with wedding gifts from his family, the intercom in our apartment building buzzed. Liam went to answer it, his brow furrowed. "Who is it?" he asked. A distorted voice, tinny and desperate through the small speaker, crackled back. It was my mother. "We need to talk to Clara, please. Just let us up." Liam looked at me, a question in his eyes. I shook my head. A slow, deliberate motion. The old me would have panicked. The old me would have felt a surge of guilt and obligation. But the new me felt nothing. Just a cold, hard line being drawn in the sand. Liam pressed the talk button again, his voice firm. "She doesn't want to see you. Please leave." But they didn't leave. For the next hour, they laid siege to our building. They buzzed again and again. They shouted my name up at our window from the street below. It was a desperate, pathetic display of the loss of control. When their attempts to get inside failed, they resorted to calling the building's front desk, trying to convince the concierge to let them up for a family emergency. The concierge, a kind man named George, whom I always chatted with, called up to our apartment. "There's a couple down here, a Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins, who are insisting they need to see you," he said, his voice professionally neutral, but with an undercurrent of concern. I took a deep breath. This was it. This was the moment to enforce the boundary, not with a text message or a blocked number, but face to face, or as close to it as I was willing to get. I walked over to the intercom, Liam right beside me, his hand resting reassuringly on my shoulder. I pressed the talk button. My voice, when it came out, was clear and steady, amplified into the lobby below. "This is Clara," I said. My mother's voice immediately erupted from the speaker, a torrent of emotional manipulation. "Clara, thank God! We were so worried. We drove all the way here to talk this out. We can fix this, honey. We just need to talk." "There is nothing to talk about," I replied, my tone leaving no room for negotiation. "My decision is final." "Don't be ridiculous!" My father's voice boomed, overpowering hers. "You can't just sell our home. It's your family home. We are not going to let you do this." "You don't have a choice," I said simply. "The legal process has already begun. You gave me that power when you put my name on that loan. You just never thought I would use it." A choked sob came from my mother. After everything we've done for you, how can you be so cruel, so heartless? We are your family." And that was the word. Family. The word they had used my entire life as a weapon, as a justification for their neglect and favoritism. But the word had lost its sting. It was just a word now, hollow and meaningless. "No," I said, and the word felt powerful on my tongue. "You are not my family, not anymore. Family doesn't try to buy your happiness for $5,000. Family doesn't choose a party over your wedding. Family shows up. You didn't show up. Not for my graduation, not for my engagement, and certainly not for my wedding. You have made it very clear for 28 years that I am not a priority. So from now on, you are no longer mine." I took another breath, ready for the final declaration. "This is the last time you will hear my voice. Any future attempts to contact me, my husband, or to come to my home or my workplace will be documented and forwarded to my lawyer as harassment. You are no longer my responsibility. Your finances are not my problem. Your living situation is not my problem. Your feelings are not my problem. You are on your own." I let go of the talk button. The connection was cut. I could imagine them standing there in the lobby, stunned into silence, the faces of people who had just run full speed into a brick wall they never knew existed. For the first time in my entire life, I hadn't backed down. I hadn't apologized. I hadn't tried to make them feel better. I had chosen myself. This was a moment of profound importance. If you support this powerful decision, this act of self-preservation, drop a flexed bicep emoji in the comments to send Clara some strength on her new journey. That support, even from strangers, felt like the foundation of something new I was building for myself. A few days later, a different kind of support showed up at my door. Allison, my stand-in maid of honor, arrived with 2 giant bags of takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant and a bottle of expensive champagne. She didn't ask a lot of questions. She just said, "I figured you could use a friend." And for the next 3 hours, we sat on my living room floor, ate pad thai out of cardboard boxes, and talked about everything and nothing. It was easy. It was comfortable. It was real. The next day at work, my boss, Dr. Evans, a brilliant and notoriously demanding woman, called me into her office. I braced myself, assuming I had missed something while my life was imploding. Instead, she asked me to sit down. She looked at me with an expression I had never seen from her before. It was gentle. "Clara," she said, "I don't know what's going on in your personal life, and it's none of my business. But I do know you've been carrying this company on your shoulders for the last year. I just wanted you to know that we see it, and we appreciate it. Whatever you need, whether it's time off, a more flexible schedule, you've earned it. Just say the word." The professional respect, the acknowledgement of my hard work felt more parental than anything I had ever received from my own father. But the most profound moment came from an unexpected source. Liam and I were invited to his parents' house for Sunday dinner that weekend. The house was filled with the warm, comforting smell of a roasting chicken. It was a normal, peaceful family gathering. After dinner, as I was helping Liam's mother, Linda, clear the table, she placed her hand on my arm. "Clara, dear," she said, her voice soft. "We don't know the whole story with your family, and we don't need to. But I want you to know something. You are our daughter now. This is your home. And in this family, we celebrate everyone." Later that evening, Robert, my father-in-law, raised his glass for a toast. He didn't make a big speech. He just looked directly at me, his eyes crinkling at the corners as he smiled. "To Clara," he said simply, "a woman of incredible strength and grace. We are so, so proud to call you our daughter." Tears streamed down my face, but for the first time in a long time, they weren't tears of pain or sadness. There were tears of gratitude, of relief. I was surrounded by people who saw me, who valued me, who loved me for who I was, not for what I could do for them. This was my family now. Not a family bound by blood and obligation, but a family forged in choice and mutual respect. A family I had chosen, and a family that had, without hesitation, chosen me right back. The house on Maple Drive was just a building full of bad memories. This feeling of belonging. This was finally home. It's been a year since my wedding day. A year since I walked out of that hotel conference room, leaving my family in the wreckage of their own making. Liam and I spent our honeymoon island hopping in Greece, basking in the sun and the incredible peace of knowing that for the first time, my life was truly, completely mine. We came back to Boston and bought our own place, a beautiful, sunlit brownstone in a quiet neighborhood. It felt like a fresh start, a canvas waiting to be painted with our own colors, free from the muted, oppressive tones of my past. At work, things continued to soar. Dr. Evans, my boss, had made good on her promise. I was put in charge of a new, even more ambitious project, leading a team of brilliant scientists. The respect I earned, the opportunities I was given, they weren't contingent on me being quiet or convenient. They were earned through hard work, dedication, and results. I was Clara, the accomplished scientist, the respected leader, not Clara, the scapegoat daughter. And the biggest, most incredible news? Liam and I are expecting. Our baby is due in just a few months. As I sit here now, painting the nursery a soft, calming blue, I can feel a joy I never imagined possible. A joy unburdened by the need for external validation. A joy that comes from building something truly good, truly loving, from the ground up. Our future. My old family, the one I grew up in, well, their reality looks very different now. Mr. Davis, my lawyer, moved fast. The court order to force the sale of the Maple Drive house went through without a hitch. My parents, despite their desperate attempts to fight it, had no legal recourse. My name on that mortgage was indeed the leverage I claimed it to be. The house, their supposed sanctuary, was sold. Not for a profit, but at a fair market value that allowed me to recoup my initial investment and pay off the remaining balance of the loan. My parents, stripped of their biggest asset and with their credit score in tatters, were forced to downsize dramatically. They ended up renting a small, cramped apartment an hour outside of their old neighborhood, far from the social circle they had so desperately tried to impress. The public humiliation, the loss of face within their community. It hit my father particularly hard. He lost a lot of his business contacts too. His network, built on golf games and boastful tales, crumbled when his image did. And Kevin? He finally had to face reality. With no home to crash in and no parents to bail him out, he was forced to find a real job. He's working at a Best Buy now, selling electronics. I heard through the grapevine that he's absolutely miserable, constantly complaining about his hours and his low pay. He's paying rent to my parents, a small amount, but it's the first time he's ever truly been financially accountable. He's no longer the golden child. He's just a guy working retail. It's not the life he envisioned, but it's the life he created for himself, free from my enabling. About 6 months ago, an email landed in my inbox. It was from Kevin. I almost deleted it without reading, but something made me open it. It wasn't a desperate plea for money. It wasn't an angry accusation. It was short, simple, and shockingly sincere. Clara, it read. I get it now. I'm working. I'm paying my own way. It's hard. But I finally understand. I was wrong about everything. I'm truly sorry for what I did. I'm trying to be better. I didn't reply immediately. I let it sit for a few days. The old me would have rushed to respond, eager for any scrap of reconciliation. The new me knew better. His apology, though genuine, didn't erase 28 years of pain. But it was a start. A crack in the wall, perhaps. I eventually sent a polite, brief reply. I didn't say, "I forgive you." I just said, "I wish you well on your journey, Kevin." The door, once slammed shut, is now ever so slightly ajar. But it's a door I control. Every interaction, every possibility of a future relationship will be on my terms. Standing here in this nursery, painting a tiny blue elephant on the wall, I think about everything that led me here. For years, I fought for a seat at a table where I was never truly wanted. I yearned for their approval, for a love that always seemed just out of reach. But in the end, I realized the solution wasn't to fight harder for that table. It was to build my own life, my own career, my own marriage, my own family. They say blood is thicker than water, but they often forget the rest of that old saying, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. The bonds you choose, the people who show up for you, who uplift you, who see your worth without you having to fight for it. That's the bond that truly matters. True family isn't about shared DNA. It's about shared values, shared respect, and unconditional love. It's about being there. And now, I finally have that. This journey has taught me that my self-worth doesn't come from my parents' approval. It comes from within. Financial independence isn't just about money, it's about freedom. Freedom to choose, to leave, to build. And the greatest gift you can give yourself is the courage to set boundaries, even when it means walking away from the people who are supposed to love you the most. My heart broke that day, standing alone at my wedding. But from that breaking came a strength and a clarity I might never have found otherwise. And for that, despite everything, I am truly grateful. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against family members who dismissed you? How did you navigate those difficult conversations, or even the decision to walk away? What unexpected sources of support did you discover in tough times? Share your experience in the comments below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more stories about finding your voice and building a life on your own terms. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it.